joining us today on a important episode of Pages in Positivity. I'm Gabby. That's Claire.
Claire.
I don't know which direction you're in. And we are two librarians at the Hedberg Public Library. If you're just joining us, thanks for joining us for the first time. If you are a follower, we appreciate you. We appreciate you being here for this conversation, especially because we are talking about how to start having conversations. And our part of our role today is enabling you guys with resources on how to educate yourselves for these conversations. So today we are talking about the current events of Black Lives Matter, police brutality protesting, and demanding change. This is a heavy topic. We are clearly not Black voices, but we are doing our part to use our platform in a supportive and constructive way. As you might have heard, today is hashtag Black Tuesday, and we are being asked to basically mute our content, right? We're not posting pictures of brunch or puppies or, your own personal content, and using your platform and your voice to amplify the work and the awareness of Black voices, Black issues, and Black creators. So that is what we are trying to do today. So
one of our main goals for today is we want to make sure that you can leave here today knowing that you know how to go out and find the resources that are going to support your stance, help others, and again, like the whole goal of hashtag Blackout Tuesday is to amplify the voices that have not necessarily been heard, and to bring to light the issues that are actually happening. So this is a time to filter out opinion, bring forward fact, and we're going to give you some resources for you to explore, and some tips and tricks on how to evaluate those resources in order to make sure that you are educating yourself. Because first and foremost, no matter what your cause is, the best thing that you can do is educate yourself, and educate yourself appropriately. Making sure you're filtering out those biased voices, getting that first person perspective, and hearing a variety of different stories and a variety of different platforms. So we have some great links that we'll be sharing with you today. We have some great stories from some amazing authors that we're going to be sharing with you today, in hopes that you will have a whole bag of tools to go out there and help start supporting your cause, whatever that might be. Today, our focus is on Black Lives Matters and the current events, but this could be for anything that you want to do in the future as well.
All right, should we dive in?
Let's go.
Okay. Here's a good question, Gabriel. Where should we start?
Yeah.
Should we start with maybe some reading material that we can share? So there have been a lot of book lists being compiled by really awesome and really educated voices on this matter. There is an entire list of people asking for resources for children, and then there is another list, guys, multiple pages, and then there's one for adults and all ages also. And this list was compiled by Suje Lugo Vasquez and Aaliyah Johnson. And I'm really sorry if I mess those up. These names are unfamiliar to me. But they have broken up an awesome list about so many different topics, because we also recognize that this is an issue that is multifaceted. And the amazing part of that is that you can't separate those things, because they, with our intersectionality, it's a whole picture, not pieces of a picture. So if we're leaving out facets of this topic today, it is not intentional to exclude or diminish voices, perspectives, or representation. It is just that it is such a huge issue. We are trying to give you starting building blocks, to begin, places to start. It's up to you to do the rest of the work. So there are resources on Blackness, ancestors, elders, police brutality, activism, Black Lives Matter, speak and learn, your truth, our truth. For little kids, whiteness and white privilege. Like, it goes on and on and on. This is a super awesome resource. I am going to share it with Claire so that she can share it with all of you.
Yes. Right now up on the screen, I have two. These are just some very good starting points. These are some amazing graphics that were, I was given permission by the Abram Public Library in Delavan, Wisconsin. Miss Catherine Schufs is amazing and has put together this is just the starting point. So we have nonfiction and fiction. It's mostly fiction, YA, and graphic novels. So you can see that there are dozens of books on this list, and this is just scraping the surface of all the different stories and all the different facets, like Gabi said. But this is a good starting place.
I'm trying to get that link. We're using Zoom today instead of our normal Discord. So I'm like, where's the stuff? How do I make it work? So the link that I just shared with Claire is the reading list for children, and it breaks it up by topic. And in this case, children is used pretty much to encompass, it looks like, I would say, like babies through teenagers, because there are definitely some older kid reading materials up in there. So, and we'll share that link with you, and we'll have, we will be using the library's social media platform today to provide these resources and these voices. So if you missed the link here, you can go and find it later on our social media. We'll be featuring titles, some of them that we talk about here, some of them are more, because again, we only have so long with you guys in front of us. Should we talk about some books, right?
Let's talk about some books.
Okay.
Where do we want to go from here?
Two of my favorite middle grade novels. So these are both fiction stories. However, they offer insight into perspectives and experiences and some real, issues. It's not, fiction isn't just built from nothing. So the first one I want to talk about is The Parker Inheritance by Marian Johnson. So this one, it does a kind of back and forth story of a young, I think she's like 12 or 13, African-American girl who goes to visit and live with her, at her grandma's house. So she's kind of uncovering this mystery that took place in the past. And the mystery is really rooted in a lot of the racist past of this southern town. So learning and experiencing what it was like versus how there are still things prevalent today. And she also learns a lot about her own family's history and identity. So that one is super great. It's kind of like the Westing Game, if you're familiar with like that children's classic, but much more modern, takes place with just kids, and it's super awesome. The second middle grade novel that I want to share with you is Ghost Boys by Jewel Parker Rhodes. It's been a while since I've read this one, so let me try to, basically it is kind of the story of again, he's middle grade, so probably 12, 13, African-American boy who is mistakenly thought that he is holding a weapon when it's just, it's a misunderstanding, and he is killed by police officers. And through that, he meets, this is not a spoiler because it's like the entire entity of the story, he meets other African-American, specifically boys, but also other people who have been victims of racism and violence. So it really uncovers a lot of that, and it makes it really approachable for middle graders, but it also doesn't hide things. So it's a heavy one, but it's a good one, and it's a good place to start because, even then it's not a starting point. We'll talk about how early to talk about racism with your child later. We'll do more stories now. Claire, we have a whole list, right? What should we do next?
We do.
You want to do some young adult books because that's our jam?
Yeah, definitely. So it's really nice. The list I have provided here from Abraham Public Library. It's there's some great like African American voices in here, but it's a whole list of people of color voices as well. So be sure to check some of those out. But I feel like we can't necessarily talk about these issues without bringing up like the stars in the young adult world of this topic, which include The Hate You Give and All American Boys.
Yes. Oh, keep talking.
So I'm going to go ahead and pull those up real fast. So
Oh,
All American Boys,
otherwise.
All American Boys, of course, is Jason Reynolds' book. And then The Hate You Give, if I can find it here on my list, is by Angie Thomas. And we've talked about these multiple times, mostly because we're huge fans of both of these authors. But these ones have been kind of on the up and coming and at the forefront of the Black Lives Matter, I guess, like reading list.
Yeah, especially for teenagers.
Yes.
But they're still good for you as adults. Like, for real. They're so good.
So I don't necessarily think we need to go over a synopsis of both of these books because we talked about them so much, but they're definitely at the top of the list, and they're books that everyone should read. They're beautifully written. They talk through the situation and give you a real perspective of incidents and things that are very much real in our world today. So definitely give them a read.
One thing I definitely want to point out with All American Boys is that, so it's a collaboration piece between Jason Reynolds and Brendan Kelly. And that's hugely important because it offers both perspectives. You know, you, as a reader, you're one, I am not white and Black at the same time. So it is important that and you as a reader, no matter who you are, that you can identify with a voice, but also learn the other perspective. And it might not be a perspective that always gets a voice or one that you're familiar with hearing. So I really appreciate this piece because, it shows you that it's not a one-sided issue by any means. And it shows you, it also talks about, how to be a good ally. So that's hugely important also. So if you're considering reading young adult fiction to educate yourself on this issue, start with these two.
Yes. It's always a great starting point. And then go out and read everything else by Angie Thomas and Jason Reynolds.
Because they're both epic.
Yes. Let's see. I'm going to pull up my list here.
I can talk about, I have to remember the beginning. So this is Dear Martin by Nick Stone. Nick Stone has been writing a lot of amazing novels lately, and they all tackle different issues and perspectives. I think odd one out is Black queer narrative, which is super awesome and important. But Dear Martin is the story of Justice McAllister, and he has an encounter with police officers that leaves him really like shaken up, and he doesn't, this is his first like major encounter. He doesn't quite know how to process it, so he writes letters, more like journal concept, not actual mail, but he writes letters to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to kind of like learn about and process this. And then there's more, and it is also very good. So like put this one on near the top of your list, because it's not always, it's not always an arrest, and it's not always a mistaken weapon that leads to targeted violence. It can be a total misunderstanding. So read this one also.
Yes. So this one goes into nonfiction territory. Let me switch a few things around. But I think this one was super, I guess I want to say super poignant in me kind of discovering the history of going through, you know, why there have been riots, why have there been marches, why have there been protests, and that is the graphic novel series March. And this was written, it was written by John Lewis, Andrew Aiden, and Nate Powell, who all worked together on this. And John Lewis is a U.S. congressman, and he was 15 at the time, living in, he lived in Alabama, and he experienced this firsthand. So it is a firsthand retelling of what it was like to go through these marches. And now he is a lawmaker in the United States, and being able to share that story of his history, of the United States history of this issue, and being able to see it from multi-facets, and the fact that it is black and white illustrated, and it gives you a perspective that you don't necessarily see in, you know, the photographs out of your history books. It is a firsthand account of what a young person was going through during this time, and kind of leads up into kind of seeing the history of this movement, the history of African Americans, of the Black voice in America. So I think this one is a definite read if you need to, you know, start reading up on the history of it to understand why this is still happening now, why people feel the need to protest about it. So it's also a good starting place. And I'm happy to see that it's almost impossible to check these out in our library system right now, because everybody is reading it. So but definitely get your hands on it.
It is a good thing. All right, let's see what's next on our list. I'd love to talk about it's a collective work of short stories, and it's edited by Ibi Zoboi, but it's called Black Enough, Stories of Being Young and Black in America. So this compilation pulls short stories from a lot of really prominent and, you know, well-known Black YA authors. And, you know, so they wrote a short story piece about this experience and perspective. And the cool thing about this story is that they are all so unique. And I think the squishing them together in one book, you know, really brings home the fact that there are so many perspectives and differences and experiences that none are exactly alike, but they are all unified. So that one is a great place also. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Ibi Zoboi also writes American Street, which is the story of a teenage girl from Haiti. So she has, you know, this perspective, who she came to America, but her mother was detained. So again, all of these perspectives, and also deals with police violence and targeted racism. So a lot of these books are heavy, but we have to carry the heavy in order to make it lighter eventually.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, let's see. We did All American Boys.
Should we get into, so we touched on it with March, but should we start breaking into our nonfiction? And I think one that's great for like the whole family to read. Yep.
Before we get that far, so yeah. I do want to, because it lives in, well, 2 iterations of it exist, and one lives in each category. So that would be Stamped. So
read my mind.
Awesome. Okay, sorry.
No.
But what we want to do, so Stamped, there is a young adult version which is titled Stamped: Racism, Anti-Racism, and You, which is a compilation work by Jason Reynolds, again, and Ibram X. Kendi. So this one kind of does a narrative nonfiction. So it's, you know, more, I don't want to say appealing, but like it fits better with what teens comprehend. And it is oh my God, the original version of it is Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, which is an adult nonfiction novel, and really it traces, that is a huge book, hugely important also, but deals with like the roots of slavery and stemming from there into equivalents of modern day slavery. So that's a big one. Ibram X. Kendi also writes How to Be an Anti-Racist, because the quote by Maya, is it Maya Angelou? Not enough to be non-racist, you must be actively anti-racist. Paraphrasing. I'm sure you've seen it on social media lately. So this is the work, to be doing right now. Claire's gonna verify my quoting attributions here.
Yes.
She's always on it.
My laptop is being slow, but I will come to that.
Okay. So let's move into some nonfiction.
Angela Davis said it.
Angela Davis.
Yes.
My bad. I will have to read that a few more times so it really sinks in and I remember it correctly. So some nonfiction work that you can read. So we did Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, as well as How to Be an Anti-Racist. That's the wrong reading list.
One of the hot topic ones, especially last year at like WLA, was So You Want to Talk About Race.
Yeah.
By Ijoma Ula. Did I just butcher her name? I'm so sorry.
Also, go ahead.
I was going to say, she had come and done a conversation with us, I believe at WLA last year. And
awesome.
It was really an important kind of talk to librarians of where we stand in this, essentially a fight. So that was all I was going to say on it.
That's good. So the #1 best-selling book on Amazon right now is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. Why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism, and it's a 2018 nonfiction book. So support your library, support your local bookstore if you can get your hands on that. That's what everybody's reading right now. Super important work. A couple others that you can read to do the work are The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, Me and White Supremacy by Layla F. Saad, which is I would consider it more of a workbook because it gives you work to do. You're supposed to read, and then you're really supposed to reflect and write down your reflections. Journal it out so that you're doing the work of unpacking embedded racism. There's also Why I'm No Longer Talking About Race, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo Lodge. And this one is the frustrations of discussions of race and racism were being led by those who weren't affected by it. So this is taking the narrative back into her own hands. Also, hugely important. Woo.
Yes.
You guys good? Are we hanging in there? This is a lot. It is a lot of resources. It is a very overwhelming topic and time. And so while we're throwing a lot of information at you, there's more out there. But the other part to remember is you have to start somewhere. You don't have to read all of these at the same time. You don't have to start somewhere. Just start somewhere. Do we want to, were there more books that, there are obviously a bajillion more books that we should share, including nonfiction about the history, nonfiction about activism, nonfiction about people leading the way. There are, of course, you also need the fiction side, and these just happen to be three of the closest own voices, Black narrative fiction, YA fiction that were sitting next to me. Like, there are so many else. It's one of those, it feels like a double-edged sword where there are so many resources, but there are also not enough. So,
right. And it's, it's up to us to give you these resources, but ultimately it's your guys' job and your responsibility to sift through this and understand your part in the narrative. Making sure that you're finding credible sources, making sure you're getting that first person perspective, making sure people aren't necessarily sharing their opinions and feelings, making sure that it's been well researched, by whether it's an institution you respect, whether it's by a human being you respect, but making sure that you're doing the work in order to educate yourself and educate yourself properly and responsibly. Especially in this day and age between COVID-19, today's events, everything, there's a lot of information that is being thrown at us. And it's our job not to just sit there and absorb it. It's us to read it, sift through it, analyze it, and make sure that is telling the appropriate, right, and accurate story. So all that high school research is coming in.
Right. And don't forget that your librarians are here to help you confirm credible resources, right? If you did the work, you are finding resources, you did your best to see if it's credible or not, and you're stuck, hey guys, come to us. This is what we do, and we want to make sure that you have the right information and are doing good work. It's not enough to just you have to do the right work and the good work, and do it well. So so we have a couple other small tidbit things we want to share. If you need someone to really kind of summarize and put into perspective the things that are happening, we have both found Trevor Noah from The Daily Show. He hopped on and did a really good chat with everybody. And he, I'm a big fan of analogies to really conceptualize things. He has a couple of great ones of those. Mm-hmm. He has some really awesome insights. If you are interested about learning more, or need it kind of digested for you so that you know what we're dealing with and what we're talking about. Some other ways to learn and educate or be involved. Claire, do you want to share those? You have that list, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you are, these are just suggestions of things that you can do. Maybe things that you can do. Take it away, Claire.
So first and foremost, educate yourself properly. That's the greatest thing that you can do, is start sharing credible information and learning about it for yourself. There are a couple of other things that you can do. Of course, there's plenty of people out there who are on what they're calling the front lines. They're out there protesting peacefully, trying to make a difference, starting conversations, things like that. But there are ways that you can donate. There are a wonderful collection of organizations that you can donate money to, supplies to, time to. So again, do your research, make sure that your investment, whether it's time, money, is going towards an appropriate place. Another great thing that you can do is start talking to your legislators. Sign petitions, get out there and read what kind of laws are out there, and start a conversation with your senators, your aldermen, your whoever. Write them letters, express what you feel needs to be changed, and other things you feel strongly about, and make them feel strong about making change as well. Other things you can do is go out and vote. You know, it's still a little whiles away, but make sure you're doing your research and voting people into legislation who follow your beliefs, or just voting in general is a good place to start. And of course, always read. Keep on reading, keep on learning. I'm trying to think, did I miss anything?
I think those are good places to start. We will be sharing some of the resources that we talked about today, as well as others on the library's social media pages, so Facebook and Instagram. There will also be reading lists available. I believe they'll be shared through the website. But we can encourage you to, educate yourself. So the library is seen, as a center for learning, but it's not just learning about one thing. It's also building a community. And we want to support everyone in the community, including Black Lives Matter, especially during this time, but also always. So educate yourself, start somewhere, and do the work.
Do the work. It's always important to take action, but always choose compassion. So
that is what we have for today. Do we miss things that we had planned to talk about today, Claire?
No, I think we're good.
We hit them? Okay.
I think we hit them. I'm going to post a couple of links into chat. There have been librarians all over the place have been working to create great resources. This one is a wakelet by Sophia Gagnon, who put together a YA anti-racism and social justice resource page that has a ton of other things. Otherwise, be sure to check out our social media, where throughout the week and other times we'll be posting great resources that you can check out and make a difference.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Tune in tomorrow, and be sure to go out there and do the work. Until next time.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.